You believe that you are a sovereign individual making your own financial decisions, but this is a delusion. In reality, you are a biological computer running an operating system that was coded by two people who likely lived in fear, prioritized safety over freedom, and trained you to be a high-functioning servant rather than a master. This is the genetic debt. It is not merely the color of your eyes or the shape of your jaw. It is the mimetic inheritance of poverty consciousness that sits in your subconscious like a malware program, quietly siphoning off your potential wealth before you even have a chance to earn it. The soft men spend their lives trying to please their parents, subconsciously replicating their financial mediocrity to maintain tribal belonging. The architect understands that to build a dynasty, you must first declare bankruptcy on the emotional and behavioral debts of your lineage. You are starting life not at zero, but in the red. Your parents, with all their good intentions, installed a safety switch in your brain that trips every time you get close to a level of risk required for massive success. They taught you how to survive in the 20th century, which is the perfect recipe for failure in the 21st. To audit this debt, you must first confront the scarcity script. Most of our parents were raised in an era of industrial stability or post-war reconstruction where the path was clear. Get a degree, get a job, buy a house, retire. They operated on a fixed pie model of the world. They taught you phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees and we can't afford that. These are not harmless sayings. They are linguistic programming commands that wire the neural pathways for lack. When a child hears we can't afford that, the child learns that he is powerless against the external world. He learns that money is a scarce resource that must be hoarded. The architect rejects this. Money is abundant. It is literally printed from nothing by the trillion. The problem is not availability. The problem is access. By internalizing your parents' fear of running out, you have crippled your ability to invest. You hoard cash, which loses value, because it feels safe, mirroring your father's anxiety, instead of deploying capital into assets which generate value, which feels risky. You are paying interest on their trauma. The second component of the genetic debt is the employee factory. Your parents likely raised you to be a good boy. A good boy sits still in class, listens to the teacher, gets good grades, and follows the rules. This is excellent training for a mid-level manager in a dying corporation. It is terrible training for a sovereign architect. The school system and the parenting style of the late 20th century were designed to produce compliant labor. They punished disobedience and risk-taking. Yet every single fortune in human history was built on disobedience and risk-taking. If you feel a physical knot in your stomach when you think about quitting your job or challenging authority, that is not your intuition speaking. That is your genetic leash tightening. Your parents wanted you to be safe, but in the algorithmic age, the safe job is the most dangerous place to be. By adhering to their definition of success, you are walking perfectly in step toward a cliff. They programmed you to seek permission. The architect realizes that no one is coming to give you permission. You have to seize it. We must also analyze the taboo of silence. In most soft households, money is never discussed. It is considered rude, dirty, or stressful. You saw your parents argue about bills in hushed tones. You saw the tension in your father's shoulders. You learned that money equals pain. You learned that money equals conflict. This creates a subconscious wealth repulsion. If your brain associates money with family stress, you will self-sabotage every time you get close to abundance. You will blow the money or lose the deal just to return to the familiar state of struggle, because struggle feels like home. This is the homeostasis of poverty. Your nervous system is regulated to a specific set point of financial stress. If you go above it, you panic. If you go below it, you panic. You are trapped in the financial temperature range of your parents. The architect breaks the thermostat. You normalize wealth. You normalize the discussion of capital. You strip the emotion away from the numbers. Money is not good or bad. It is just fuel. You cannot drive the car if you are afraid of the gas. The most insidious part of the debt is the guilt economy. Parents often view their children as their retirement plan or their validation project. They sacrificed for you, they fed you, they paid for your college. Now the unwritten contract says you owe them. You owe them the lifestyle they approve of. You owe them the career they understand. When you deviate from the script, when you start a business instead of becoming a lawyer, when you buy Bitcoin instead of a mutual fund, they trigger the guilt. Why are you gambling? Why aren't you being responsible? This guilt is a tax. It forces you to make suboptimal decisions to keep the peace. You stay in the city near them instead of moving to the tax haven. You buy the house to show them you made it instead of renting and investing the difference. The architect understands that you cannot pay your parents back by being mediocre. The only way to honor your lineage is to transcend it. You must be willing to be the black sheep for a decade so you can be the patriarch for a century. Finally, there is the biological debt of comfort. Your parents likely embraced the convenience culture of the late 20th century. Processed food, television, sedentary luxury leisure. They taught you that rest means collapsing on a couch. They taught you that celebration means eating sugar. These habits are encoded in your dopamine receptors. You are fighting a war against your own childhood conditioning every time you go to the gym or choose a steak over a pizza. If your father was fat and tired at 40, you have a genetic and behavioral momentum pushing you to be fat and tired at 40. This physical weakness drains your financial energy. A man with low testosterone and high insulin resistance cannot build an empire. He is too busy managing his decline. The genetic debt is not just in the bank account, it is in the blood work. The first step to liquidation is awareness. You must look at your financial reflexes and ask, is this me or is this my father? Am I saving this money because I have a strategy or because I'm afraid? Am I staying in this job because I love it or because I was trained to be a good employee? The answers will terrify you. You are running a simulation of a life that is not yours. You are the actor in a play written by ghosts. The architect burns the script. You acknowledge the debt and then you default on it. You declare Chapter 7 on the scarcity mindset. You are not here to continue the cycle of mediocrity. You are here to break the chain. The ledger is open. The red ink is everywhere. It is time to stop paying interest on the past and start compounding the future. The emotional margin call is the precise moment when the cost of maintaining your parents' approval exceeds the equity in your own soul. In the financial markets, a margin call happens when your account value drops below the maintenance requirement and the broker forces you to sell your assets to cover the debt. In the genetic economy, this happens when the psychological interest payments on your parents' worldview, the fear, the guilt, the need for safety, bankrupt your ability to be a man. You are currently leveraged to the hilt on parental validation. You are borrowing self-esteem from them by following their rules, but the market has turned. The rules that kept them safe in 1990 are the rules that will keep you poor in 2026. The architect receives the margin call and decides to default. You stop paying the validation tax. You accept the liquidation of the good son persona so that the sovereign man can be born. This is a violent process. It requires you to look at the people who gave you life and realize that their software is incompatible with your survival. You must conduct a ruthless trauma audit to identify exactly where their love has become your limit. To execute the trauma audit, you must analyze your financial behavior not as a spreadsheet, but as a psychological crime scene. Every time you hesitate to pull the trigger on an investment, ask yourself, whose voice is this? Is it the voice of market analysis? Or is it the voice of your mother who was terrified when your father lost his job in 2008? If you're hoarding cash in a savings account, earning 0.01%, are you doing it because it's a strategy? Or are you soothing your father's anxiety about having a rainy day fund? You are likely running legacy code. This code was written to protect them from their specific traumas, but it is running on your hardware in a completely different environment. The audit requires you to trace every financial reflex back to its origin. Did your parents fight about credit card debt? Now you are allergic to leverage, even good debt that could build your business. Did your parents mock rich people as greedy or corrupt? Now you subconsciously sabotage your own success to avoid becoming one of them. You are carrying their baggage, and you are paying the overweight fees for a flight they aren't even on. The audit will reveal the vampire dynamic of the crab bucket family. The soft men believe that their family wants them to succeed. The architect knows the darker truth. Often, your family only wants you to succeed up to a point. They want you to do better than the neighbors, but they do not want you to do better than them. If you become too wealthy, too fit, or too independent, you hold up a mirror to their mediocrity. Your success becomes an indictment of their choices. Therefore, they will subconsciously or actively sabotage you. They will say, why work so hard? Come have a beer. They will say, that investment sounds like a scam. Just be safe. They are not protecting you from risk. They are protecting themselves from the feeling of inferiority. This is the sabotage of intimacy. They use their love as a weapon to keep you in the bucket. The emotional margin call is when you realize that their comfort is not worth your potential. You have to be willing to make them uncomfortable. You have to be willing to let them think you are reckless, arrogant, or distant. You cannot lift them up if you are chained to them. You must break the chain first. This leads to the necessity of betrayal. In every hero's journey, there comes a moment where he must disobey the father to save the kingdom. The good son waits for permission. The great father seizes authority. To become the patriarch of your own line, you must psychologically kill the authority of the previous patriarch. This is not about disrespect or malice. It is about sovereignty transfer. You cannot be the king of your house if you are still the prince in your father's house. The transition requires you to violate their expectations. If they expect you to buy a house in the suburbs and you buy a multifamily rental property in a tax haven, you have betrayed their vision of safety. If they expect you to get a steady job and you start a volatile business, you have betrayed their vision of stability. The soft men cannot handle this friction. They crave the attaboy. The architect accepts the friction as the heat of re-entry. You are leaving their orbit. It is supposed to get hot. It is supposed to shake. If you are not disappointing your parents at least partially, you are probably not growing fast enough. You must also confront the financial umbilical cord. Many men claim to be independent but still rely on the bailout option. They know that if things go wrong, dad will fix it. Or they accept gifts that come with strings attached. The down payment on the house that forces them to live nearby. The paid-for wedding that forces them to invite people they hate. This is soft slavery. As long as you take their money, you must take their advice. The architect cuts the cord. You refuse the help that buys your compliance. You would rather live in a tent on your own dime than in a palace on their subsidy. This radical self-reliance changes the power dynamic. When you don't need them, you can love them. When you need them, you can only resent them. The audit forces you to look at where you are still suckling at the teat of the previous generation. Are you on their phone plan? Do they pay your insurance? Do you live in their basement? Every dependency is a leak in your hull. Plug the leaks. Pay your own way. The price of freedom is the burden of the bill. The emotional margin call forces you to redefine loyalty. The soft man thinks loyalty means doing what they want. The architect defines loyalty as saving the lineage. If your parents are steering the ship toward an iceberg of financial obsolescence, loyalty is not helping them shovel coal. Loyalty is mutiny. You take the wheel. You steer the ship to warm waters. They will scream. They will cry. They will say you are crazy. But in 10 years, when they are safe and warm in the harbor you built, they will understand. Or they won't. It doesn't matter. The architect does not seek validation. He seeks victory. You are playing an infinite game. Your parents are playing a finite game. You cannot let the players of the finite game dictate the strategy of the infinite one. Finally, the audit requires you to perform the inventory of fear. You must list every fear you have about money, fear of poverty, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of success. Then, next to each fear, write the name of the person who gave it to you. Fear of the stock market, mom. Fear of asking for a raise, dad. Fear of looking flashy, grandma. Once you name the source, the spell is broken. You realize these are not facts of reality. They are heirlooms of trauma. You have inherited a haunted house. You don't have to live in it. You can move out. You can build a new house. The audit is the eviction notice you serve to the ghost in your head. The bill is due. You can pay it with your future, or you can pay it with the uncomfortable conversation where you set a boundary. The soft man pays with his future. The architect pays with the boundary. The ultimate victory over the genetic debt is not merely paying it off for yourself, but ensuring it is never reissued to your children. You are the 0 point. The line of poverty, fear, and mediocrity stops with you. The line of power, sovereignty, and capital starts with you. This is the genetic rewrite. You are not just raising children. You are programming the operating system for a dynasty that will outlast the current civilization. The soft men ruin their children by giving them the fruit of their labor without teaching them the root of their labor. They create trust fund babies, weak, entitled consumers who burn through the family fortune in one generation. The architect implements the dynasty protocol. You use your wealth not to cushion your children from reality, but to expose them to it. You are rewriting the source code from consumer to producer, from employee to owner, from victim to vanguard. To execute the rewrite, you must first establish the family constitution. Most families operate on unspoken rules and passive-aggressive expectations. The architect makes the implicit explicit. You sit down and write the code of the lineage. What do we stand for? What do we reject? In this house, we do not say, I can't afford it. We say, how can I afford it? In this house, we do not blame the teacher. We solve the problem. In this house, we do not consume content. We create it. This document is not a suggestion. It is the law. You ritualize it. You read it at the dinner table. You frame it on the wall. You are replacing the random cultural programming of the TV and the school system with the intentional programming of the father. If you do not indoctrinate your children, the state will. The family constitution is the firewall that protects their minds from the virus of the soft world. The economic component of the protocol is the artificial gravity of hardship. The greatest threat to your children is your own success. Comfort is a sterilizing force. If your children never feel the cold, never feel the hunger, and never feel the panic of an empty bank account, they will never develop the hunter instinct. They will become zoo animals, well-fed, safe, and utterly useless in the wild. The architect artificially simulates poverty and friction. You may be a millionaire, but your children are broke. They do not get an allowance for breathing. They get a commission for production. If they want a car, they buy it. If they want a phone, they pay the bill. You are the bank of dad, but you operate like a commercial lender, not a charity. You give loans with interest. You demand business plans. You let them fail. You let them feel the pain of a bad decision when the stakes are low. flow, a $50 toy, so they don't make a bad decision when the stakes are high, a $5 million company. You are inoculating them against fragility. We must then address the incentive trust structure. The soft man leaves his money to his children with no strings attached, hoping they will do the right thing. Hope is not a strategy. The architect uses dead hand control to enforce the values of the lineage from beyond the grave. You set up an incentive trust. The trust does not pay out a lump sum that allows them to live in a condo in Miami doing cocaine. The trust matches their earned income. If they make $50,000, the trust gives them $50,000. If they make zero, the trust gives them zero. It funds education, it funds business startups after vetting, and it funds medical emergencies. It acts as a supercharger for ambition, not a substitute for it. You are turning your capital into a tool that rewards the behavior you want, production, and starves the behavior you hate, parasitism. You are ensuring that the money only flows to those who have the strength to carry it. The rewrite also demands a shift in linguistic programming. You change the vocabulary of the house. You stop asking, "What did you learn in school today?" which validates the employee factory, and start asking, "What problem did you solve today?" or "How did you add value today?" You ban the language of victimhood. Phrases like "it's not fair" or "he made me do it" are forbidden. You replace them with the language of agency. What is my move? How do I fix this? What is the ROI? You discuss money openly at the dinner table, not the stress of the bills, but the strategy of the allocation. You show them the rental property. You show them the gold. You show them the Bitcoin wallet. You demystify the mechanism of wealth so that by the time they are 18, the financial system is not a scary monster. It is a game board they have already mastered. Finally, the dynasty protocol requires the transition of identity. You are moving your lineage from the labor class to the capital class. The labor class sells time. The capital class allocates resources. This is a profound psychological shift. You must teach your children that they are not their job title. They are the stewards of the name. The name is the asset. If they disgrace the name, they are cut off. If they elevate the name, they are rewarded. This creates a sense of multi-generational mission. They realize they are part of a chain that stretches back to you and forward into the future. They are not isolated individuals trying to find themselves. They are architect in training. This purpose protects them from the nihilism of the modern age. While their peers are depressed and anxious searching for meaning in video games, your children have meaning built into their blood. They are the builders of the fortress. The genetic debt ends here. You have audited the trauma. You have defaulted on the guilt. You have written the new code. Now you upload it to the next generation. You're not just raising kids. You are raising ancestors. You are raising the men and women who will be the patriarchs and matriarchs of the 22nd century. The soft men leave behind debt and photos. The architect leaves behind a culture, a code, and a kingdom. The work is done. The script is rewritten. The dynasty begins now.